may be my last gig as the head of the Wild Atlantic Way, but I'm remaining with Failte and very excited about the new role. Having said that, I think the focus of the discussion today is around regionality and seasonality. And I'm not sure if my slides are the ones that are about to pop up here. But anyway, age-old challenges for the tourism industry, ones that we have made strides in, but will need to make more strides in. As Mark outlined, the pie has grown, and that 50% increase in visitors is still being shoved into the same seasons, creating challenges in certain areas. So in fairness, we have challenges, but we also have solutions, and they're shared solutions that collaboratively we can address and move on. Paul showed you the hotspot map, and obviously the redder the area, the more concentrated the business of tourism. But in very close proximity to many of the hotspots and the red spots, there are not so hot spots. Even not too far from here, 50, 60 kilometres out along the Ring of Kerry, off the Ring of Kerry, the tourist season is 6, 8, 10 weeks at best, and even then that's a challenge. So not everywhere is feeling the same benefit and gain from tourism. North Kerry, West Clare, and then as we move further up into the north of Galway geography, as well as over along the eastern seaboard as well. So while certain areas are benefiting, the wider hinterland isn't, and the challenge will be to spread visitors, that 50% increase in visitors, to wider areas by giving them compelling reasons to come. Again, where do they go? Our visitors don't necessarily do what we tell them or what we want them to do. They tend to come at the same times, but there's been a serious lag between the promotion of Ireland and the programming of Ireland. Very recently I found myself one evening watching the Irish Film Board's YouTube channel, where they had archived old Board Fáilte promotional videos and digital slots of Ireland going back to the early 60s and the early 70s, when they were put on a bus in Dublin or Shannon, and the route was Dublin, across to Galway, down through Clare, the hot spots. The sad thing is, 60 years later, they're still following the same route. So let's hope we can move the thinking on somewhat quicker and address the regionality, but also the seasonality. We're very lucky. We have a mild and temperate climate. The temperature doesn't change radically, so there is no reason why visitors can't engage in the same activities in March and April as they can in October, November, and July and August. So looking at the regionality issue, first of all, this is a very good descriptor of visitor patterns. The red dot, or the hotspot, is the Cliffs of Moher in March of 2016 at a point in time in the day. So the concentration of visitors that were at the cliffs at this point in time, within 4 hours, we can see how far they have moved, and they have started to disperse from the area. And 10 hours later, see how red the Dublin spot has become. So not only have they not stayed in the wider hinterland, they are now 3 hours across the country in Dublin. There are some down in Cork, up in Galway, and in other places. So those visitors are not contributing to the local economy of the wider Cliffs of Moher area. The local hinterland is not seeing the benefit. So with our regionality challenge, it's to give visitors more reasons to stay in that area. They're coming because of the cliffs, and we need the hotspots and the iconic attractions, but we also need to maximise the return from those visitors when they're here. In terms of seasonality, and I'm going to stop using this example, but this is a little coffee shop in Knightstown on Valentia Island. This was September of last year, when the big challenge we felt from that area was that the boat trips to the Shelling Islands stopped at the end of September, and there was very little compelling reasons to get visitors to come. This is the 16th of September, the boats are still running, and the coffee shop is closed, saying thank you for your business, we're closed for the season and we'll see you next year. Bingo for Killarney. They had to come back here to get watered, wined, fed and coffeed, but not so for the peripheral areas. So it's important that we work with businesses to help them understand the cost of staying open and the potential benefits. We talked about over-tourism, and congestion came up ever so slightly this morning. And while it is a challenge, it's a programming and a visitor management challenge. So this is Fisher Street in Doolin in May of last year. There's a lot of tour buses, a lot of business, a lot of activity. Doolin is bustling and doing well. They've obviously come or are on their way to the cliffs, which is fantastic. But here's the Pound and Dalman, 15 minutes away, somewhat inland, and only a smattering of visitors. I think the Cliffs, Geraldine, are going to get about 1.5 million visitors this year. There's no other visitor attraction in County Clare getting more than 100,000 visitors, and 40 to 50,000 is the average, sorry, with the exception of Bunratty, but in the wider Cliffs area. So
So there is opportunities, there isn't full capacity at other areas, but unfortunately we're not telling our visitors or the buyers about all the wide variety of things there are to do and see, or we're not telling them well enough. So what's our response been to this? So regionality and seasonality have been challenges in the tourism industry as long as I've been working in the industry, and that's coming on close to 20 years. So as Paul mentioned, one of the big things is around the building brilliant visitor experiences. And in Failte we have a framework for developing visitor experiences. It's our visitor experience development framework. And my colleagues in the Wild Atlantic Way team initiated that this last year, and Joe O'Driscoll headed it up. So under Brand Ireland, Mark and his colleagues in Tourism Ireland are out spending every bob they have, albeit somewhat diminished, putting Ireland in the consideration set for overseas visitors. But once they're interested in Ireland and they've read their guidebook and they head for the internet to start planning their trip, what's the key proposition or the compelling reasons? That's where we've come along with the experience brands as what to do to get rid of this green desert myth that was out there for many, many years. And then underneath that, within those experience brands, what are the big signature visitor experience, the compelling must-visit things to come and see? But support those around that. There's no point in visitors coming to an area, be it the Cliffs of Moher or the Guinness storehouses or Slieve Leagues, but leaving the area again without doing many other things. So we need to make sure there's a variety of supporting experiences to keep them in the area, and then there's all the ancillary services, your hospitality, your cafes, your restaurants, your retail outlets to keep them in the area. So we embarked on this on a pilot initiative on the Skellig Coast here last summer, at the start of the summer. And the Skellig Coast, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is the bit that's not on the Ring of Kerry. It's when you chink off at Waterville or at Camersaveen and head out to Portmagee and come around in through the Glen and back into Ballinskelligs before you link back up with the Ring of Kerry in Waterville. And this is where the boats depart for Skellig Michael. So when we embarked on this initiative, obviously Star Wars had come out, there was an increased interest in the area, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We found there were 9 independent tourism groupings, community tourism groupings in this small geography, all competing with each other, and Killarney was the big bad wolf who was stealing everybody's business. So the very first session was 4 hours in a room with all the local representatives understanding what their concerns and challenges were. And I have to say, this was a Failte-led piece of work, but the success of this work was the collaboration between all the stakeholders involved as well as the communities. And I'd have to compliment Kerry County Council for embarking with us at the very outset and being part of it, and Moira Murrell and Joan McCarthy and her team led that charge, supported by the development companies, SKDP, the Education Training Board, everybody who had a footprint or a role to play in tourism, as well as the communities and the industry on the ground. So you will no longer see 5 different maps of the Skellig Ring, the Skellig Loop, the Skellig whatever. It is one vision, it is the Skellig Coast. Everybody is buying into that. They have attended overseas shows, presenting their new experiences throughout the year. The boatmen are no longer selling a boat trip to Skellig Michael. There is now a big theme, it is journeys inspired by the 6th century Skellig monks. You have the Monks Trail. So visitors are now getting a sense of what it's all about. Why would I come here? If you're not fortunate enough to either get a place on a boat or the weather is too inclement, there are multiple ways to engage and have your Skellig Michael experience without actually taking to the water. There are 4 discovery points. There's the Visitor Experience Centre on Valentia Island, there's the Monks Trail back in Ballinskelligs, as well as all the ancillary services. That on top of transatlantic connections. In this small geography, there are some magnificent connections where Ireland reached out to the world, and those stories are now being brought to life, like the transatlantic cable, as well as many others. So this is how an area has come together to say, what is it that we have on offer, and how can we keep visitors here? The businesses in Portmagee, 6 o'clock in the evening, quiet time again. Everybody had gone back to Killarney or Tralee for their overnight. It's about expanding that, keeping the visitors here, and giving them more reasons to stay longer and do more. We've expanded that work now, and we are coming to the end of work completed on the Connemara and the Aran Islands, and the Burn and the Cliffs of Moher is nearing completion. So hopefully that will address some of the challenges that the Cliffs is having. We need the Cliffs, but there are many other ways to experience the Cliffs. If you stay in the region, you can have sunrise or sunset at the Cliffs of Moher. You can experience the Cliffs from the water, taking a boat trip, as well as engaging in the variety of other experiences in the area. And at the moment we have just started work on 3 other areas, the Inishowen Peninsula up and North Donegal, the Dingle Peninsula and the Three Heads in West Cork, which is not such a hot spot on our map. We've also looked at a new approach to our capital investments. So it's no longer about running a grant scheme that if you tick all the criteria, you'll be eligible for a grant to develop something. We are working very closely in partnership with all the agencies who have a remit or responsibility for the state-owned assets. So we've put in place strategic partnerships with the OPW, with Failte, with the National Parks and Wildlife Service, Waterways Ireland. This map just reflects those that are relative to the Wild Atlantic Way in an attempt to put in place investments that will be of greater benefit to the wider area and not just the individual attractions. Similarly, any work we do at our discovery points, this is Malin Head with just cars everywhere, visitors are coming, spending 24 minutes, gone again, back to the Letterkennys and Derrys of the world. How can we give them more reasons to stay longer, spend more and engage with the area? Other solutions we're doing is we have 12 cluster groups along the Wild Atlantic Way this year working on extending the season initiatives. And really a lot of that work basically said, why do you close on the 15th of September? And the first response we would get in most instances was, because we always do. Many small and micro enterprises don't understand how much it costs to turn on the lights in the morning and to open the door, to actually do business. When we work through a lot of that with them and there's an understanding of how many more visitors they would need to break even or to make a profit, and then working collaboratively. It's no point having the hotel open if the visitor attractions and the activity providers aren't over. Your guests will be back at the front desk by lunchtime saying, I went to such and such an attraction, it was closed, what do I do for the rest of the day? So it's about everybody cross-promotion and putting together packages and experiences that will make that October or March through October season more beneficial. This is an example of some of the work we have done, and there's a copy in everybody's pack for this particular area of some of the shoulder season experiences. One good example is the Northern Lights experience up on Inishowen. You can't see the Northern Lights on the 21st of June. Similarly, the dark skies out on the Skellig coast. These are off-season winter experiences. It doesn't matter if the dark skies don't appear every night. We can build stories around it and engage visitors, but it is a compelling reason to come. And if you don't see it, you may come back again, and it will be very rewarding for those that do manage to have that opportunity. Similarly, our colleagues in Dublin, they're looking at the winter and the off-season to how to grow business, and they've put significant investment into both the development and expansion of a number of key festivals that take place in the October to March period to make Dublin more attractive when it's quieter time. Now I know many of us in the room would say Dublin doesn't need any help, but it does have a shoulder season as well. And similarly in Ireland's Ancient East, our colleagues are working on a wide number of initiatives there also. And I can't but mention how some investment in tourism infrastructure, such as the Waterford Greenway, has really led to a dramatic increase in business. It has rejuvenated that whole copper coast of the southeast from Waterford to Dungarvan. I spent 3 days in Dungarvan last week, and on the 3rd of November it was nearly impossible to get a dinner reservation in Dungarvan. If you hadn't your bike booked in advance, good luck, you'd have to come back again. And the numbers of people out engaging in outdoor activities by virtue of a piece of tourism infrastructure that is allowing the private sector to diversify and to have new business startups, and it has given energy and rejuvenation to places like Killarney and Dungarvan. And I think more of this type of investment over the next 10 years will help unlock more and more places to realise their tourism potential. Similarly, about moving visitors out of congested areas or more inland from the Wild Atlantic Way, we have embarked on a number of loops and drives. This year we delivered the SHANNON Estuary Way, which is to open up the gateway of Limerick City, but also it's the places that are not directly on the route to bring them to life and give visitors options and to spread business and to keep visitors longer in an area. Other little devices such as the Wild Atlantic Way passport encourages visitors to make sure they get out to the more remote spots, and when they get there we will inform them of the history of that area with our interpretation, give them an insight into what is unique, other things they should do and could see while they're here. Very recently ourselves in Tourism Ireland in conjunction with Killarney Inc. hosted a really successful TBEX, the Inter-European bloggers. This wasn't in July and August. The experience these people, 650 international delegates got, was of a shoulder season, misty, wet, dull Ireland. They had a reach to 380 million people worldwide with 3 billion tweets. So hopefully initiatives like this will also improve our regionality and seasonality challenges. Just very quickly then, Just looking at this was Storm Ophelia on the 15th of October, but the next day on the 16th of October, here's John Edwards with a British travel writer, an Irish travel writer, open water sea swimming. So with the right equipment and the right investments and the right guides, we can do this. Back in 2002, I doubt anybody owned a wetsuit. And finally, we in Failte, all our domestic marketing campaigns, they're not focused on the high season. They're encouraging people to travel in the shoulder seasons and to stimulate business at that time of year to support the work we're doing and the challenges. So what might success look like? Those yellow areas will come to fruition and our season will extend from March right through to the end of October in most places and longer in others. So collectively and collaboratively with investments and the agencies working together with the industry, in 10 years' time, hopefully these will not be as big a challenges as they currently are. Thank you all very much.